Emma had always been a fighter. Life hadn't handed her an easy road, but she never complained. After losing her parents in a car accident 5 years ago, she found herself responsible for their sprawling farmland nestled at the edge of town. It wasn't just land, it was her family's legacy. Every tree, every field, and every fence held memories of laughter-filled summers and quiet winter evenings spent with her mom and dad. Now, it was all hers to take care of, along with raising her 2 young children, Lily and Max. Running the farm alone wasn't easy. The days were long and the nights felt even longer. Between tending to crops, fixing broken equipment, and making sure her kids had everything they needed, Emma barely had time to breathe. But she didn't mind. The farm kept her connected to her parents in ways nothing else could. Still, there were parts of the property she couldn't use, large stretches of unused land that sat idle because she simply didn't have the manpower or resources to work them. That's when Clara came into the picture. Clara was a distant cousin, someone Emma vaguely remembered meeting at family gatherings years ago. She showed up one day wearing designer clothes and carrying a briefcase, claiming she wanted to help. "You've got so much unused land here," Clara said with a polished smile. "Why not lease some of it? I can turn it into something profitable, for both of us." At first, Emma hesitated. She didn't know Clara well, and the idea of handing over any part of her family's land felt strange. But Clara was persuasive. She promised steady monthly payments, offered to handle maintenance, and assured Emma that the arrangement would be strictly professional. Desperate for extra income to keep the farm running, Emma agreed. They signed a simple lease agreement, shook hands, and Clara got to work. For the first few months, everything seemed fine. Clara paid on time, kept the leased portion tidy, and even sent Emma updates about her plans. Emma began to relax, thinking she'd made the right decision. Her kids loved having a little more financial stability, and she finally felt like she could catch her breath. But then things started to change. One morning, while checking the boundaries of her property, Emma noticed something odd. A fence post near the edge of the leased area had been moved, a small shift but enough to make her suspicious. When she confronted Clara, the woman laughed it off. "Oh, must have been a mistake during construction," Clara said smoothly. "Don't worry, I'll fix it." Emma let it go, chalking it up to an honest error. But soon other signs began to appear. More boundary markers shifted. Papers related to the lease mysteriously went missing from Emma's files. And then, one afternoon, Clara casually mentioned that she'd registered the leased land under her name for administrative purposes. Emma froze. "What do you mean, under your name?" she asked, her voice trembling. Clara shrugged as if it were no big deal. "It's just paperwork, Emma. Nothing to worry about. You're still getting your share, aren't you?" But Emma knew better. Something wasn't right. She hired a lawyer to look into the matter, only to discover that Clara had forged documents to claim ownership of the leased land. All those late-night conversations, all those promises, they'd been lies. Clara had played her like a fiddle, taking advantage of her trust and desperation. The legal battle that followed was brutal. Emma poured every penny she had into fighting Clara, determined to protect what was rightfully hers. But Clara had money, and lots of it. She hired a team of high-powered attorneys who twisted the facts and dragged the case out for months. In the end, the court ruled in Clara's favor, citing insufficient evidence to prove forgery. Emma walked out of the courtroom feeling like the world had crumbled beneath her feet. Not only had she lost part of her family's land, but she was also drowning in debt from legal fees. Her friends and neighbors rallied around her, offering support and encouragement. "Don't give up," they told her. "You're stronger than this." And deep down, Emma knew they were right. Losing the land hurt, but it wasn't the end of her story. If anything, it lit a fire inside her, a burning determination to fight back. As she sat on her porch one evening, staring out at the fields that remained hers, Emma made a silent vow. She wouldn't let Clara get away with what she'd done. Someday, somehow, she would find a way to make things right. Not just for herself, but for her children and the memory of her parents. It might take years, and it might require sacrifices she couldn't yet imagine. But Emma was ready. Revenge wasn't her goal. Justice was. And she wouldn't rest until she saw it served. Little did she know, fate had already begun weaving its threads, setting the stage for a twist neither she nor Clara could foresee. After the devastating loss of her family's land, Emma found herself at rock bottom. The weight of failure pressed down on her shoulders, but she refused to let it crush her spirit. She knew she couldn't undo what had happened, but she also knew one thing for certain. Giving up wasn't an option. Her children depended on her, and the memory of her parents' hard work demanded that she keep fighting, not just to survive, but to thrive. The first step was figuring out how to rebuild. With the legal battle over and her finances in shambles, Emma made a bold decision. She would sell off a portion of her remaining land. It wasn't easy. Every acre felt like a piece of her soul. But she reminded herself that this sacrifice was temporary. "I'll get it back someday," she whispered to herself as she signed the papers. The money from the sale gave her a fresh start, though it wasn't nearly enough to take on someone like Clara directly. For now, she needed to focus on building her strength, not just financially but mentally and emotionally. Emma threw herself into work, taking on odd jobs wherever she could find them. During the day, she worked at a local cafe, serving coffee and pastries with a smile despite the exhaustion gnawing at her bones. At night, she cleaned offices, scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins to make ends meet. On weekends, she helped neighbors with gardening or small repairs, earning whatever she could to put food on the table for Lily and Max. Though the hours were long and the pay was meager, Emma never complained. Every dollar she earned was a step closer to reclaiming her life. But working hard wasn't enough. Emma realized that if she wanted to stand a chance against someone like Clara, she needed to be smarter too. She began devouring books about finance, real estate, and business strategies. At first, the concepts seemed overwhelming. Terms like capital gains and investment portfolios might as well have been written in another language. But Emma didn't give up. She read during her breaks at the cafe, scribbled notes, late at night after tucking her kids into bed, and asked questions whenever she crossed paths with people who knew more than she did. Slowly but surely, the pieces started coming together. Her best friend Sarah became her unofficial advisor. Sharp-witted woman with a knack for numbers, Sarah had always admired Emma's resilience. When Emma confided in her about her plan to fight back against Clara, Sarah didn't hesitate to jump on board. Together, they pored over spreadsheets, analyzed market trends, and brainstormed ways to grow Emma's savings. "You've got grit," Sarah told her one evening as they sat huddled over a laptop. "That's worth more than any amount of money." With Sarah's guidance, Emma began investing wisely. She started small, putting her earnings into low-risk ventures like bonds and mutual funds. As her confidence grew, she ventured into slightly riskier territory, buying shares in companies she believed in, and flipping properties when opportunities arose. Each success, no matter how minor, fueled her determination. By the end of the first year, Emma had managed to double her initial investment. It wasn't enough to rival Clara's wealth yet, but it was proof that she was heading in the right direction. Throughout this journey, Emma kept a close eye on Clara. She subscribed to local newspapers, attended community meetings, and even joined social media platforms just to stay updated on Clara's activities. What she discovered both infuriated and motivated her. Clara had used the stolen land to launch a lucrative development project, a gated community filled with luxury homes that sold for exorbitant prices. Overnight, Clara became the talk of the town, celebrated as a savvy entrepreneur and philanthropist. Meanwhile, Emma remained invisible, grinding away in the shadows waiting for her moment. One day, while scrolling through online listings, Emma stumbled upon something that made her heart race. Clara's own house, a stunning mansion perched on prime real estate near the city center, was listed for sale. The property was breathtaking, sprawling gardens, marble floors, and panoramic views of the surrounding hills. It was the kind of home that screamed power and privilege, and according to the listing, it was priced within Emma's reach. At first, the idea seemed absurd. How could she, a struggling single mother, possibly afford such a place? But as she stared at the photos, a plan began forming in her mind. This wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of everything Clara had taken from her. If Emma could somehow acquire it, she wouldn't just be getting revenge. She'd be turning the tables completely. The thought sent a thrill through her veins. For the first time since losing the land, she felt a spark of hope. Emma spent weeks preparing for the purchase. She liquidated some of her investments, pooled her savings, and secured a loan using her remaining land as collateral. To avoid raising suspicion, she created a shell company under a pseudonym, ensuring that no connection could be traced back to her. The process was nerve-wracking, but Emma approached it with meticulous care. She hired a real estate agent who acted as her intermediary, negotiating fiercely on her behalf without revealing her true identity. When the bidding war began, Emma held her breath. Multiple offers flooded in, each higher than the last. Clara, sensing an opportunity to make a hefty profit, pushed for top dollar. But Emma stayed calm, countering each bid strategically until finally, the seller accepted her offer. As the paperwork was finalized, Emma allowed herself a rare moment of triumph. She had done it. Against all odds, she now owned the very roof over Clara's head. The victory was bittersweet. Emma hadn't forgotten the pain of losing her family's land, nor had she forgiven Clara for her betrayal. But owning Clara's house marked a turning point, a signal that the tide was beginning to shift. For years, Emma had been the underdog, underestimated and overlooked. Now, she was the one holding the cards, and Clara had no idea. As Emma stood outside the grand mansion for the first time, she felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. Anger, satisfaction, and a deep sense of justice mingled with a quiet resolve. This wasn't the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. She had proven to herself that she was capable of achieving the impossible. And as she walked away, already planning her next move, she knew one thing for certain. Clara's days of untouchable power were numbered. Owning Clara's house was a victory Emma had only dreamed of, but it wasn't enough to satisfy her. This was more than just revenge. It was about reclaiming control over her life and making sure Clara felt the same helplessness she had once endured. Emma knew that simply owning the property wouldn't be enough to shake Clara's confidence. She needed a plan, one that would slowly unravel the illusion of invincibility Clara had built around herself. And so, with careful precision, Emma began crafting her next move. The first step was subtle. Emma sent a letter to Clara under the name of her shell company, informing her that the house she lived in had been sold. The tone of the letter was professional, almost cold, offering no personal connection or hint of who the new owner might be. It explained that while Clara could continue living there as a tenant, certain changes would take effect immediately. Rent prices were raised slightly. Not enough to raise suspicion, but enough to make Clara uncomfortable. New rules were introduced. No loud parties after 10 p.m., no modifications to the property without prior approval, and regular inspections to ensure compliance. Clara didn't react well. Used to being in charge and having people bend to her will, she bristled at the sudden shift in power dynamics. At first, she tried to ignore the changes, assuming they were minor inconveniences that would eventually fade away. But when an inspector showed up unannounced one Saturday morning, clipboard in hand, Clara realized this wasn't a bluff. She stormed out of the house demanding answers from the landlord, only to be met with silence. Every email and phone call she sent went unanswered, leaving her increasingly frustrated. Emma watched all of this unfold from afar, relishing every moment. She had spent years studying real estate laws and tenant rights, ensuring that every decision she made was airtight. If Clara tried to fight back, Emma was ready. She kept meticulous records of everything: the lease agreement, inspection reports, even photos of the property before and after each visit. Her goal wasn't just to irritate Clara, it was to build a case so strong that if Clara ever attempted to challenge her, Emma would emerge victorious. As weeks turned into months, Emma escalated her tactics. She hired a team of inspectors who visited the house frequently, citing vague concerns about structural integrity or potential code violations. Each inspection disrupted Clara's routine, forcing her to rearrange her schedule or cancel meetings. When Clara complained, the inspectors shrugged apologetically, saying they were just following orders. Meanwhile, Emma sat miles away, sipping coffee and smiling to herself as she imagined Clara's growing frustration. But Emma didn't stop there. She began introducing small yet annoying changes to the property itself. The lush gardens Clara loved so much. Suddenly, the gardeners stopped coming unless Clara paid extra for their services. The sparkling pool in the backyard? Its maintenance contract was canceled, leaving Clara to deal with algae buildup. Even the air conditioning system mysteriously developed issues, requiring costly repairs that Emma billed directly to Clara under the guise of tenant responsibility. Clara tried everything she could think of to regain control. She called the real estate agency listed on the paperwork, hoping to negotiate directly with the owner. But the agent politely informed her that all communication had to go through the management company, a company that existed only on paper. She reached out to friends in high places asking them to intervene on her behalf. Yet no matter whom she contacted, the response was always the same. The landlord followed all legal protocols, and there was nothing anyone could do. For someone, like Clara, accustomed to throwing money at problems until they disappeared, this level of resistance was infuriating. She began losing sleep, her mind racing with questions. Who was behind this? Why were they targeting her? And most importantly, how could she stop them? The uncertainty gnawed at her, chipping away at her once unshakable confidence. For the first time in years, Clara felt powerless, and she hated it. Emma, on the other hand, thrived. Watching Clara squirm gave her a sense of satisfaction she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about punishing Clara for what she'd done. It was about proving to herself that she was capable of standing up to someone who had wronged her. Every time Clara called to complain or demanded special treatment, Emma remained calm and composed, responding with polite indifference. She never revealed her identity, maintaining the mystery that kept Clara guessing. Still, Emma knew she couldn't keep this charade going forever. Sooner or later, Clara would figure out who was behind it, or at least suspect. And when that day came, Emma wanted to be ready. She spent hours practicing what she would say, rehearsing every word until she was confident she could deliver it without hesitation. She envisioned the confrontation vividly. Clara's shock, her anger, her desperation. Emma wanted to see the exact moment Clara realized she had been outplayed. In the meantime, Emma focused on perfecting her strategy. She tightened the screws, even further, implementing stricter rules and raising rent prices incrementally. She made sure every action was justified by law, leaving Clara with no room to argue. By now, Clara's pristine reputation was starting to crack. Neighbors whispered about the constant commotion at her house, and rumors spread that she was struggling financially. The very image Clara had worked so hard to cultivate, of wealth, success, and untouchability, was crumbling before her eyes. Despite the chaos she was causing, Emma couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She remembered the days when she trusted Clara, when she believed they could work together for mutual benefit. Those memories stung, not because she missed Clara, but because they reminded her of how naive she had been. Trust, she realized, was a fragile thing. Once broken, it could never fully heal. And while she took no joy in seeing Clara suffer, she knew this was necessary. Not just for herself, but for anyone else Clara might try to exploit in the future. As the months passed, Emma's patience paid off. Clara grew increasingly desperate, lashing out at anyone she thought might have answers. She accused her lawyers of incompetence, her friends of betrayal, and even her staff of sabotage. Her once polished demeanor cracked, revealing the insecure and calculating person beneath. Emma watched it all unfold with a mix of satisfaction and resolve. She had waited years for this moment, and now that it was here, she intended to make the most of it. The final phase of her plan was nearing. Emma knew exactly how she would reveal herself to Clara, and she had already mapped out every detail. All that remained was timing. She wanted to choose the perfect moment, one that would leave Clara utterly exposed and defeated. Until then, she continued playing her role as the invisible landlord, pulling strings from behind the scenes and watching as Clara unraveled piece by piece. The day Emma had been waiting for finally arrived. It was a crisp autumn morning, the kind where the air felt fresh and full of possibility. She had spent months orchestrating her plan with precision, ensuring every detail was in place. Now, she stood outside Clara's mansion, her mansion, ready to confront the woman who had stolen so much from her. This wasn't just about reclaiming what was rightfully hers. It was about showing Clara that no one could take advantage of her, without facing consequences. Clara hadn't noticed anything unusual when she woke up that day. Life had become chaotic for her over the past several months, but she had grown accustomed to the constant disruptions caused by inspections, rule changes, and unexpected bills. She assumed this would be another ordinary, if frustrating, day. Little did she know everything was about to change. Emma entered the house through the side gate, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, carrying nothing but a folder filled with documents. She didn't announce herself or knock on the front door. Instead, she walked straight into the living room where Clara sat sipping coffee while scrolling through her phone. The sight of an unfamiliar woman walking into her home startled Clara, and she immediately stood up, her expression a mix of confusion and irritation. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Clara demanded, her voice sharp and commanding. It was the tone she used to intimidate others, the same one she had once used on Emma during their land dispute. Emma smiled faintly, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with Clara's rising agitation. "Relax, Clara," she said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you, I just want to talk." Clara frowned, studying Emma's face more closely. Recognition dawned slowly and her eyes widened in disbelief. "Emma, is that you?" "Yes, it's me," Emma replied, her voice steady. "Surprised to see me?" Clara's mind raced as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. The mysterious landlord, the endless inspections, the mounting frustrations, it all made sense now. Her stomach churned as realization hit her like a freight train. You're the owner of this house?" she stammered, her voice trembling. "That's right," Emma said, taking a step closer. "I bought it a few months ago. Did you really think someone like you could operate without consequences forever?" For a moment, Clara was speechless. She stared at Emma, trying to process how the tables had turned so drastically. Then, anger bubbled to the surface. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't just buy my house and ruin my life like this. Do you have any idea how hard I've worked to get where I am?" Emma crossed her arms, her expression unwavering. "Funny thing about hard work, Clara, I know a lot about it. You, on the other hand, all you've ever done is manipulate people and take shortcuts. Remember that little piece of land you stole from me? Or did you think I'd forgotten about that?" Clara's face flushed red, a mixture of guilt and defensiveness washing over her. "That was years ago," she shot back. "Why are you bringing that up now? Haven't you moved on yet?" "No, Clara, I haven't moved on," Emma said firmly, "because moving on doesn't mean forgetting. Moving on means making sure something like that never happens again, to me or anyone else. And trust me, this isn't personal. It's justice." Clara scoffed, though her bravado was starting to waver. "Justice? You call this justice? This is harassment. If you wanted revenge, why didn't you just say something instead of playing these games?" "Revenge?" Emma repeated, raising an eyebrow. "This isn't about revenge. Revenge is petty. This is about balance. You took something precious from me, Clara. Something I couldn't replace. So now, I've taken something precious from you. Fair is fair." Clara opened her mouth to argue but stopped short. For the first time, she realized there was no way out of this. No amount of yelling or threatening could undo what Emma had done. The power dynamic had shifted completely, and she was powerless to stop it. Desperation set in as Clara tried a different tactic. "Look, Emma, maybe we can work something out," she said, her tone softening. I'll pay you whatever you want. Double, triple the value of the house. Just let me stay here, please. Emma shook her head, her expression unreadable. It's not about money, Clara, it never was. You thought you could buy your way out of everything, but some things aren't for sale. But what do you want? From me? Clara cried, her voice cracking. Haven't you done enough? I want you to understand what it feels like to lose control, Emma said quietly. To feel trapped, helpless, and unsure of what's coming next. That's all I ever wanted. To make sure you understood the pain you caused. Clara sank onto the couch, defeated. Tears welled up in her eyes as she buried her face in her hands. For the first time in years, she looked small and vulnerable, a far cry from the confident, untouchable woman she pretended to be. Emma watched her silently for a moment before speaking again. Here's the deal, she said. You have two options. Option 1, you leave this house immediately, pack your things, vacate the premises, and never look back. Option 2, I file for eviction proceedings against you. Not only will you lose the house, but your reputation will be dragged through the mud. Your friends, your business partners, everyone will know exactly how you got here. Clara looked up, her eyes wide with fear. You wouldn't? Oh, I would, Emma replied, her voice firm. Don't test me, Clara. I've come too far to back down now. There was a long pause as Clara weighed her options. Finally, she nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Fine, she muttered. I'll go, but don't think this is over. It is for me, Emma said simply. With that, she turned and walked toward the door, leaving Clara alone in the grand mansion that no longer belonged to her. As Emma stepped outside, she took a deep breath, feeling a weight lift off her chest. The confrontation had gone exactly as she'd planned. She had faced Clara head-on, exposing the truth and holding her accountable for her actions. It wasn't about gloating or rubbing salt in the wound. It was about closure, for herself, her children, and the memory of her parents. But Emma wasn't done yet. As she drove away from the mansion, she already knew what she wanted to do next. Owning Clara's house had been satisfying, but it wasn't the end goal. She envisioned turning the property into something meaningful, something that gave back to the community. A place where families could gather, where kids could play, and where hope could flourish. After all, she had fought so hard to reclaim her dignity, and now it was time to share that strength with others. Clara didn't leave the mansion right away. For days she lingered in the house, packing her belongings slowly, as if stalling might somehow change her fate. But Emma had no patience for delays. She sent a formal notice reminding Clara of the agreed-upon deadline and made it clear that failure to comply would result in immediate legal action. The message was firm but polite. Emma wasn't interested in dragging this out any longer than necessary. This wasn't about gloating or revenge. It was about closure. Finally, on the appointed day, Clara's moving trucks arrived. Neighbors watched curiously as expensive furniture, paintings, and boxes were loaded into the vehicles. Clara herself avoided eye contact, her head bowed as she supervised the process. Gone was the confident woman who once strutted through town, boasting about her success. In her place stood someone humbled, exposed, and defeated. As the last truck pulled away, Emma stood at the edge of the property, watching silently. It was over. Clara was gone, but Emma didn't celebrate. Instead, she walked through the empty mansion, taking in every detail. The grand chandeliers, the marble floors, the sweeping staircase, it was all beautiful, but it held none of the warmth or character of her family's farm. To her, this house represented everything Clara had built on lies and deceit, and while owning it gave Emma a sense of satisfaction, she knew it wasn't meant to be hers forever. That evening, Emma sat at the kitchen table with her best friend, Sarah, brainstorming ideas for what to do with the property. You could sell it, Sarah suggested. Make a fortune. Emma shook her head. I don't need more money, besides selling it would feel like letting Clara win. No, I want to turn this place into something meaningful, something that helps people. Sarah smiled, leaning forward. Like what? I've been thinking, Emma said thoughtfully. This house is huge. There's enough space here to create a community center, a place where kids can come after school, where families can gather, where people can find support when they need it most. Something my parents would have been proud of. The idea lit a fire in Emma. Over the next few weeks, she threw herself into transforming the mansion. She hired local contractors to renovate the space, turning luxurious rooms into classrooms, art studios, and meeting areas. The sprawling backyard became a playground and garden, complete with picnic tables and benches. Every decision Emma made was guided by one goal: to create a safe, welcoming environment for anyone who needed it. Word spread quickly about Emma's project. Neighbors who had once pitied her during her struggles now rallied around her, offering donations, volunteering their time, and spreading the word. Even some of Clara's former associates reached out, eager to distance themselves from her tarnished reputation and align with Emma's vision. Local businesses donated supplies, and schools partnered with the center to offer tutoring and mentorship programs. What had once been a symbol of greed and corruption was now becoming a beacon of hope and unity. The grand opening of the Emma's Community Center was a joyous occasion. Hundreds of people attended, filling the halls with laughter, music, and conversation. Lily and Max proudly showed off the art room they had helped decorate, while Sarah stood by Emma's side, beaming with pride. As Emma addressed the crowd, her voice trembled with emotion. "This center isn't just mine," she said, looking out at the sea of faces. "It belongs to all of you, to our community. My parents taught me the importance of giving back even when times are tough. They also taught me that strength comes not from holding on to anger, but from finding ways to heal and grow. This place is proof that we can overcome anything if we work together." Her words were met with applause, cheers, and tears. Many attendees shared stories of how Emma's perseverance had inspired them to face their own challenges. Others expressed gratitude for having a space where they felt valued and supported. For the first time in years, Emma felt truly at peace. She hadn't just reclaimed her dignity, she had created something that would benefit countless lives for generations to come. Meanwhile, Clara disappeared from the public eye. Rumors circulated about her financial troubles and damaged reputation, but Emma paid little attention. She refused to let thoughts of Clara consume her anymore. Her focus was on the future, not the past. One afternoon, months after the center opened, Emma received an unexpected visitor. It was Clara, standing nervously at the front door, clutching a small envelope. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly. Emma hesitated before nodding. "Come in." They sat in the cozy lounge area of the center, surrounded by children coloring and adults chatting quietly. Clara looked around, visibly taken aback by how different the space felt. I wanted to apologize," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything. I know I hurt you and I'm sorry." Emma studied her for a moment, searching for sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot." Clara handed her the envelope. "This is a check. Not nearly enough to make up for what I did, but it's all I have left. Please use it to help keep this place running." Emma accepted the envelope without comment. Whether Clara's apology was genuine or simply an attempt to salvage her pride didn't matter. What mattered was that the cycle of bitterness had ended. Forgiveness wasn't about forgetting. It was about moving forward. As Clara left, Emma tucked the envelope into her desk drawer. She didn't dwell on it. Instead, she returned to the heart of the center, where laughter echoed and friendships blossomed. Here, amid the warmth and energy of the community, Emma found her true purpose. Life wasn't perfect, there were still challenges ahead, but Emma faced them with resilience and grace. She had turned pain into power, loss into legacy, and despair into hope. And as she looked around at the thriving center she had built, she knew one thing for certain: justice had been served, not just for her, but for everyone who believed in second chances and